Just because we were in the middle of beautiful Idaho, but a very difficult part to get to, maybe some were hoping that people wouldn't pay attention to what happened.
A lot of people did. Tom Luna, former chair of the Idaho Republican Party, speaking to us after he just returned from Challis, little city in the Lost River Range, most known for the earthquake that hit the area in 1983, but could now be known for potential aftershocks from what happened during this past weekend's Idaho GOP summer meeting. Hundreds of elected delegates descending on Living Waters Ranch, where they began the two-day event considering 23 proposed rule changes and 26 proposed resolutions. So lots of meetings, lots of work being done during the day, capped by, some Saturday evening guitar get-together around the campfire. Isn't that nice? Yes. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. But unlike last summer's GOP convention, where hard-right former lawmaker Dorothy Moon was elected party leader with 434 votes, this meeting would be attended by about a third of those participants, which some, like Tom Luna, consider a problem. A little more than 200 people deciding on the direction of the party, which boasts just shy of 600,000 registered voters. In some media accounts, the meeting was referred to as a unifying one for the party. But for others, like Tom Luna, a member of Idaho's GOP since 1980, when it wasn't even the majority party, says it may have been unifying, but based on a few of the rules passed, not in a good way.
For example, the decision was made to disenfranchise Republican women and remove their vote from the executive committee, remove the vote on the executive committee of young Republicans, remove the vote of college Republicans off the executive committee. And, that has alarmed a lot of people, and should, right? At a time when our party is trying to reach out to the younger generation and encourage more involvement from younger Republicans. At the same time, we know that the workers of our party are the Republican women.
A decision to discharge, determined by just 216 people. 137, nearly 2-to-1, voted to make those three groups non-voting members of the executive committee.
You have to look at the reasons for it. If you want to see where a majority of the Republicans are politically, look at our last primary, where Brad Little won overwhelmingly, Scott Bedke won overwhelmingly, Debbie Critchfield won. These aren't the candidates that were supported by the people that are now controlling the party. And they realize that the only way that they can win a Republican primary is they need to control who's on the ballot, right? And so part of the process in order to accomplish that is to change the rules that we operate under. Before Saturday, the people who want to change the way the Republican Party operates did not have a majority of the votes to do that on the executive committee. So what did they do? They removed 3 votes. Now they have the majority.
The way the Republican Party operates is probably best portrayed by the rule passed about party enforcement. As Luna sees it, Article 20 is also a counterattack against the will of Republican voters, because the pledge to the platform is paramount.
Now we have another group that can go back and question whether you made the right decision as a voter, and they can actually pull that person in front of a committee and put them through an inquisition. And if they don't meet whatever standard has been set, then they can no longer run as a Republican in a primary.
The presidential caucus, instead of a primary, they want to have a small select group choose who Idaho is going to vote to be delegates for the GOP convention.
Yeah, so you kind of got to the point, a caucus then gives you the ability to once again control the decisions of hundreds of thousands of Republicans, and it's made by a smaller group. What our party should be doing is using every bit of influence and political clout we have to get the legislature to bring back a primary. We have 550, 600,000 registered Republicans. We need to give every one of them access to voting.
Limiting access, Luna says, is the primary purpose of today's GOP leadership, something he fears will have a chilling effect on its future.
There's 2 ways that you can unite a party. One is follow Ronald Reagan's counsel, and that is somebody who agrees with me 80% of the time is not my enemy, they're my friend. The other way you unite is you start purging the party of anybody that does not agree with you 100%. Eventually you end up with a smaller group, but they agree 100%, and so they're united.
Let me just read this to you then. This is from Representative Heather Scott. She tweeted this out after this weekend. The fruits of great leadership continue to bless Idaho Republicans. GOP Chairwoman Dorothy Moon has not let her foot off the gas since taking over the helm of the Idaho GOP. Her continued efforts to purge the party of Democrats in disguise, non-supporting and non-believing party platform members, is a wonderful breath of fresh air for all of us who strongly believe in government by the people, for the people, of the people. For those who find her efforts shocking, there are plenty of vacancies in the other party of socialist, woke liberals. Please go. The exit sign is flashing for all closet rhinos.
Yeah, I think they're being very bold now as to what their intentions and plans are. They didn't make those statements when a year ago, but now it's obvious what they're doing, and she used the word purge. If you don't agree with them 100%, then you're not a fellow Republican anymore. You're now somehow this socialist Democrat, which nothing could be further from the truth. She makes it clear that at the end of the day, we will have a smaller Republican Party. And I just don't think that's good for Idaho, and I don't think most Republicans think that is good for Idaho.
That's a different tune from 2 years ago.
You know, they're all on the same page, but they're not on the same paragraph yet.
When Luna, a year away from being ousted as party chair, insisted there was no divide within the Idaho GOP.
We're a big tent, and that tends to invite a lot of opinions and a lot of passionate conversations.
Do you still feel that this is a big tent and that it's allowing a lot of differing opinions?
No. It's still a big tent. I mean, there's almost 600,000 registered Republicans in Idaho, but the policies and the direction the party is going is to intentionally make it smaller, and there is no a tolerance for people to have different opinions or different thoughts.
That presidential caucus thing will only happen if the legislature doesn't fix what they broke last session when they removed March elections and pushed Idaho's presidential primary to May to coincide with statewide primaries. The 11 rules weren't the only policies passed this past weekend. There were also 28 resolutions, 2 more than they began the weekend. Ideas they like, but they're not really enforceable. Everything from limiting legislative special sessions to 20 days to requiring a high school student to take 2 semesters dedicated to our founding documents, to condemning and wanting to reform the FBI, to banning the jab because, quote, COVID-19 vaccinations are biological and technological weapons. They're not. There was also one offering a vote of no confidence for Governor Brad Little for vetoing House Bill 314, which was the library bill, and the 14 state representatives for voting against the veto override. Now, we did try to speak with Chair Moon about her reaction to this weekend's meeting, to ask her about the quote-unquote purge, but we've yet to hear back. So you may be wondering, if current party leadership, like Dorothy Moon, and the way they want to run things does not really line up with the majority of the party, which is what Luna says, how do the likes of Moon and Idaho Freedom Foundation board member Brent Regan get to be in that role? Well, Luna says it has to do with the more than 900 voting precincts around the state and what's usually an unnoticed part of a primary ballot.
If you get to the bottom of the ballot, and a lot of people don't get down to the bottom of the ballot, especially if there's judges and things like that that are running unopposed. But if you get to the bottom of the ballot, you will see where you elect a precinct committee person. If you're not paying attention, many of those races are ran, they're unopposed. Then those people get together and then they elect who the delegates will be to go to the state party to elect a party chair, and then to eventually write rules and write platforms. If you want to get involved down at that precinct level, those 916 races, then you can take control of a party without representing a majority of the views of the party. So when you have a county, for example, that Brad Little won in the primary by 65%, and none of the people that end up going to the state convention were Brad Little supporters, then you know what is going on behind the scenes.
Well, Luna made it clear the GOP is still the party for him. He just believes there are 2 very different ideas on how to preserve that party, and the state also, as it has been for the last 3 decades. And before that, Idaho was pretty purple under Democratic leadership for 25 years. Luna says it will take more involvement from what he considers the majority of the party in the day-to-day decisions to keep Idaho from looking a little more bruised.